Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Cornerstone of Islamic Ethics. What are Islamic ethics based on, especially with respect to business dealings? Let's have a quick look. It's First and foremost is freedom of enterprise. We are all free to do whatever we want to do in the eyes of Islam. And there are certain other things which we'll see one by one, inshallah. What is ethics basically? Ethics is, or ethics studies both moral and immoral behavior to make well founded judgments and to arrive at good recommendations. These are something which comes in innate, intrinsic in our nature. And at times we have to make decisions also. So our inner self guides us. Yet we have a code of ethics so that we know exactly what are the things we need to do and what are the things which are prohibited. Codes of morality are called ethical codes. Business ethics can also be defined as business morality. Yeah, it's just one of the same thing. Business ethics examines ethical rules and principles within a commercial context because we are doing a commercial activity. And broadly, business ethics is concerned with the study of what is good and bad, right and wrong, and just and unjust in business. It's all got to do with morality. This is the basic test of us as a human being, that how moral we are in all facets of life. Ethics in Islam, it places the highest emphasis on ethical values in all aspects of human life, as I've just mentioned. And it asks its believers to observe certain norms and moral codes in their family affairs, in dealings with their relatives, with neighbors, with friends, with business transactions, and in their social affairs, and in their public and private lives. So we are an embodiment in principle of morality. I mean, human beings are basically moral beings. That is what differentiates us. That is the one singular thing that differentiates us from all other species. Us being, a moral being basically. Freedom of enterprise. I mean, if you want to be enterprising or you want to start a business, for instance, Islam gives complete freedom to economic enterprise. Each individual in an Islamic society enjoys complete freedom in the earning of his livelihood. I mean, Islam does not believe as such in a communist system or in a socialist system. It gives free hand to each and every individual to do or set up a business based on his or her talents. Islam, as a matter of principle, prohibits all activities which may cause harm either to the traders or to the consumers in the market. So there are two forces. There are the consumers and the traders. So it has the ethics has to be. It goes hand in hand. Whether you are a trader or a consumer, we cannot harm any one of the two. In fact, I mean, interests of both of these traders and consumers have to be catered for at all cost. Keenness to earn legitimate earnings, halal earnings. One should be keen to earn halal earnings. Islam places great emphasis on the code of lawful and unlawful in business transactions. And obviously, Quranic verses disapprove the wrongful taking of the property. I mean, that is that is where Islam comes in and our morality comes in. And see, Quran basically, the message of God, is a reminder. God says that, and we have done this many times. We have mentioned this fact many times, that Quran calls itself as a reminder. Reminder of what? Reminder of the fact that we are moral beings. At times we forget, and we get overwhelmed. We might want to earn more. We might resort to unlawful practices or illegitimate earnings. So Islam or morality or the things that are associated with it comes as a reminder. So what we are doing now are we are being reminded. We are reminding each other basically. See, a tradition of the Prophet states, there's hadith that states, a time will come upon the people when one will not care as to how he gets his money, whether legally or illegally. So I think that that time has come. Now this does not mean that since there will be no distinction between legal and illegal earnings, so we might as well resort to illegal earnings because the Prophet had said so. No, he just warned us that if that time comes, we got to be aware and not indulge in those practices. This is what it means actually. Foremost among the unacceptable business in practices is riba, is interest, taking interest. Giving interest is not haram because you are a needy person in whatever capacity you are, whether you want to install another, you want to erect another factory, you want a loan, you have to pay an interest. So the one who's taking interest, that is haram. But if you are giving interest for one reason or the other, because nobody likes to give any amount over and above the principal amount, but you are bound to do so because you got to have your loans, etc. So the one who is doing that, that is prohibited actually. I mean, Islam is very, very categoric in this. And I would like to tell the youngsters here that if you read the Quran in your own language, yourself, in your own language, in your native language, only then you will realize that the verses are very simply put in the Quran that riba or interest or sood, as it's called in Urdu, it is actually absolutely forbidden in Islam. I mean, just as it is, yeah. And now, trade through mutual consent. If we are trading, there's a consumer market and there are traders and consumers. The transaction has to be through mutual consent. It cannot be a one-sided consent transaction. Mutual consent between the parties is a necessary condition for the validity of a business transaction. Obviously, the Prophet ﷺ has said a sale is a sale only if it is made through mutual consent. Very simple. And truthfulness in business transactions. Of course, Islam encourages truthfulness in business transactions and raises the status of a truthful merchant. Raises the status of a truthful merchant so that he will be at par with the holy warriors and martyrs in the hereafter. He will be having that person who would be a truthful business trader has a very high status in the hereafter in the eyes of God Almighty. Trustworthiness in business transactions. Trustworthiness. Trust is a moral virtue and duty incumbent on a Muslim in the performance of his affairs. Obviously, we got to be trustworthy. And this is exactly what was the Prophet ﷺ called before even he became the Prophet. The Quraysh used to call him trustworthy. So a true Muslim trader will not therefore barter his akhirat for worldly gains. Barter means, I hope you know what is barter. It's a business transaction where you exchange goods for goods actually, and not money. And so this is what it means. A true Muslim trader will not therefore barter his akhirah for worldly gains. Generosity and leniency in business transactions. May Allah's mercy be on him who is lenient in his buying, selling, and in demanding back his money or debts. One should be lenient in these matters. Honoring and fulfilling business obligations. Obviously, we have to fulfill our commitments, whether they are small commitments or large or business, whatever. God says in the Quran that we will be asked about our commitments in the hereafter. So you have to be very clear about them. Fair treatment of workers. Fair treatment of workers. We see they are exploited and not paid well. According to the Islamic teachings, it is the religious and moral responsibility of the employer to take care of the overall welfare and betterment of his employees actually. Employer is the one who kind of employs people. So the employer is the owner and employee is the one who works for him. For instance, I've used this word. I mean, I am addressing and you are the addressees. So employer and employees, yeah. Dealing in prohibited items which are declared haram or prohibited by God Almighty, we cannot deal in those things. For instance, liquor or alcohol or pork, etc. The trading of those things are also prohibited. Absolutely. So we can't do that. Sale of it's called al-gharar in Arabic, which means uncertainty, risks, or speculation. There's nothing in the market and we make a deal on something in thin air. That is not allowed. In Islamic terminologies, this refers to the sale of a commodity or goods which is not present at hand. I mean, you're going to make a building or a shopping plaza and it's not there actually. Nothing is there on ground and you kind of start charging, so that is not correct actually. The sale of an article or good, the consequences or outcome of which is not yet known, or a sale involving risks or hazards where one does not know whether at all the commodity will later come into existence. वो चीज़ बनेगी भी कि नहीं, we don't know, and yet we are doing transactions. That is not, correct actually. Arbitrarily fixing the prices, absolutely a bad actually practice. Islam does not encourage the practice of price fixing and leaves the traders to earn the profits from each other within lawful limits. Yeah. If a trader adopts unfair means, charges unjust prices with a view to doing harm to the smaller traders, public authorities have the right to intervene in the market. See, at a state level or a government level, they can have these institutions where they can oversee the prices of commodities, and that none of the parties, the trader or the consumers, are fleecing each other. So that party can be there. Very important, exploitation of one's ignorance of market conditions. If there's a person who does not know the market conditions and we exploit his situation, that is not good. One of the most common unethical practices in modern business really is to exploit one's ignorance of market conditions. See, these are all things which are based on our morality. This is not something which we do not know. We all know this within our conscience. What does Islam do, or the message of God does? It just gives us, or it reminds us of the things which we already know. So it's therefore Islam is based on our nature, Deen-e Fitrat, as we are on our Fitrat Salim, as it's called. Trickery. We cannot do tricks. For instance, the term al-najj means an action in which a person offers a higher price for something without intending to buy it, just to cheat or defraud another person who really means to buy it. This is wrong. This type of fraudulent transaction is totally prohibited in Islam. Cheating and fraud in business transactions. The traders and businessmen generally have a tendency to motivate the customers by adopting fraudulent business practices. Islam strongly condemns, as we have seen already. Swearing means when you just start. Swear means kasam uthana in Urdu. The Prophet is reported to have said, swearing by the seller कि आप कसम उठा के माल बेचते हैं. Swearing by the seller may persuade the customer to purchase the goods, but the deal will be deprived of Allah's blessings. We got to be really fair when we are doing these transactions or business things. Giving short measures, obviously kam tolna. Another form of deceit is to manipulate weights and measures. It refers to the act of taking full measures from others. When we buy something, you buy in full. But when you want to sell, we sell in short measures. That this is really, really something which is not good. Yeah. Dealing in stolen goods. If you know certain goods are stolen or these are stolen goods, do not deal in them. The stolen items are neither to be bought nor sold by those who know the reality. Yeah, the one who knowingly purchases a stolen good is a partner to the act of sin and the shame. See, Islam is very clear. Just remain moral. What is the conclusion here? The conclusion is, as we already know, we have done this about the purpose of deen, that deen comes here to purify us for our tazkiyah, for our purification and development, so that the humans could be eligible to enter the beautiful world of paradise forever. Because Quran mentions the objective of mankind is to enter paradise. This is a life of trial and tribulation. That is God. That is why God says, "I've created everything in pairs, night and day, husband and wife, cold and hot, and summers and winters. All these things. Similarly, the pair of this world is the hereafter." When you look at this world in isolation, it makes very less sense actually. The rape, corrupt practice is all going here, and the killings and murders. But as soon as you pair it up with the next life, hereafter, it makes complete sense, because all those people will be compensated, have to be compensated, because this life is a life of trial and tribulation, where we have been given, each soul has been given a free will, and we can decide on our free will whether to do good things or bad things. All of the things that we have just mentioned are based on morality. It is our choice at the end of the day whether we want to do trickery, whether we want to earn legitimate or illegitimate earnings. But the fact of the matter remains that the objective of mankind is to attain purity, because we are a moral being, and because paradise, as God says in the Quran, is for pure people. He will just handpick the pure people of this world and make them inherit his internal kingdom of paradise. This is it. So prophets actually were sent, and the whole religion was revealed to guide man in attaining this objective. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.